Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Great American Tower, where we have a very special morning planned for you. In front of you, you have FC Cincinnati controlling owner and CEO, Carl H. Lindner III, on your left. And on your right, our newest managing owner, Meg Whitman, who signed on the day before Thanksgiving and brought everything officially to light. So before we get started, Carl will open with some remarks, then Meg will have some. We'll open it up to Q&A. We do ask if you have a question to just kind of flag either Anwar or Kevin down, just so we have the mic. And then after we're done, we will do a quick photo op in front with both Meg and Carl in New Jersey, so just be prepared for that. And as a reminder, given the schedule today, we do not have time for one-on-ones. So if you have a question, please just make sure you flag us so we can have you ask. And with that, we'll turn it over to Carl. Or you can go over there. You can just go from there.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We can't be more excited to introduce our newest member of the FC Cincinnati ownership group to everyone. FC Cincinnati has proven to be an incredible blessing to not only our city and our community, but also our extended family. And we thank God for his daily gifts and wisdom in this adventure. FC Cincinnati and our family certainly had a lot to give thanks for at Thanksgiving this year when the MLS Board of Governors approved Meg Whitman and Griff Harsh as our newest members of our community, and as Meg as alternate governor. So have a lot to be thankful for. Griff Harsh's investment in our club just a day before the holiday. With their approval in MLS, we really added a great mind and a great talent with Meg, and probably one of the more accomplished business executives of our time. So can't be more pleased to have Meg and Griff and her whole family as a part of our investor group. Meg has been a leader and a trailblazer in business for 40 years. Her accomplishments in technology and entertainment and consumer products are well documented and speak for themselves. Meg and Griff's investment in FC Cincinnati, and by extension our Cincinnati community, well positions our club to achieve some pretty grand ambitions, I think, that we have. We've always aspired to use soccer as a means to place Cincinnati on the world stage. With West End Stadium starting to rise from the ground and on pace to be open in 2021, we've got an amazing opportunity ahead of us to establish Cincinnati as the heart of American soccer. To do that, we can benefit from additional talent and perspectives to propel the club to create something that's bigger than ourselves and the embodiment of a rising Cincinnati. We're excited about the future and what lays ahead for not only FC Cincinnati, but for Cincinnati as our home. Please join me in welcoming to FC Cincinnati, Meg Whitman and her family.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. I can't tell you how happy and excited I am to be in Cincinnati today. We are thrilled to be joining Carl Lindner, Scott Farmer, and George Joseph, and other owners of FC Cincinnati. And people always ask me, why soccer and why Cincinnati? And I have a sort of a thought about that, which is I look for four things. And the first was when we decided to make an investment in professional sports, the first question is which sport? And this was very easy because we think the trends around soccer are tremendous. I think it really is going to be the sport of the future in the United States. It is already the sport of the world, and we think it has great potential in the United States. Then the second question is what market? And we loved Cincinnati as a market. You might know I started my career here at Procter & Gamble back in 1979. and have been on the board of Procter & Gamble for most of the last 10 years. So I get back here a lot, and I have seen the dynamic growth of Cincinnati, the revitalization of the core business district, of over the Rhine, and this seems to us, and all the data would suggest that Cincinnati is a city on the move. And then, of course, perhaps most importantly was the ownership group. You know, I think Carl and I have been around the block enough times to know that you only want to be in business with people that you like and respect. And, you know, I have always known about the Lindner family here. I had a chance to spend some time with my whole family and Carl and Martha. And we just sort of sensed this was going to be a good partnership. You know, we got along, we see the world in similar ways, and we just thought this just feels like the right thing and the right ownership group for us. And then finally, you know, the future. Listen, I mean, it's just remarkable to me that just 1 year on the pitch, Cincinnati has the third highest attendance in Major League Soccer in a temporary stadium and without a lot of track record. And so we think the future's very bright here with, you know, the right sport, the right town, the right ownership group, and clearly people in Cincinnati love soccer, and that's what you look for in the market. So we're thrilled to be partners with you all, and you know, I'll do everything I can to be helpful.
With that, we'll open it up to questions. Again, just kind of flag down either Kevin or Anwar, just so we can get the questions through the stream. Steve?
Meg, I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how this deal came together. I know you had a ownership stake in Sacramento and its efforts to become an MLS expansion franchise. So how did you kind of go from there to here?
Yeah. So we actually never had an ownership stake in Sacramento. We were asked to be part of the potential ownership team in Sacramento, but ultimately decided it was not the right thing to do. And so Carl can talk about how he was looking for an additional investor or two, and that came to our attention. And so the good news is we'd known a lot about MLS and soccer by the time we met Carl. He didn't get us at our first rodeo, which had he gotten at our first rodeo, it might have taken longer. But we knew what we were looking for. We understood the financial architecture of soccer. We knew what we were looking for. And when we came to Cincinnati and spent some time with Carl and Jeff Birding and the overall leadership team, we left that afternoon. We said, this looks pretty good to us. Do you want to talk about how you were thinking about other investors?
Yeah, we've been doing a capital raise, you know, for about the last 9 to 12 months, and we've added a number of different investors, but we've always thought it would be nice to have another sizable investment and, you know, another family to join, you know, the Farmer and the Joseph family and that. And when Jeff Birding and, you know, some others in our organization said that Meg and her family had some interest, I couldn't be more excited. Not only for the financial investment, which you know, will help us kickstart and get and finish up, you know, getting to the grand ambitions that we have with this awesome stadium and the training center, all of which you know, cost some more than what we would have originally thought a number of years ago. So, but not only helping on the financial side, but really bringing Meg with her talent and you know, her family's skills. They're involved in obviously in technology. Technology will be an important part of what we're doing at FC Cincinnati. Their family does their family does real estate development, mixed use, you know, development from the ground up is not my forte, nor my family's. So our company invests more in opportunistically and established real estate properties and that. So, and then just I think on the media side, you know, Meg has such a great background there that you know, I think she'll bring you know, lots of added value. So couldn't be more excited to have her as my partner and as the alternate governor.
Laurel?
How much input will you be relying on Meg to provide? And I guess if you could talk also about just how much you want to be involved and what your expectations are as far as that.
Sure. Want to go first? You want to go first?
Well, I'm a collaborative leader, and I think it's been great. The Farmer and the Joseph family have, they've brought their unique perspectives and help as we've been, building sponsorships and building our attendance and helping us network and give us great ideas. I look for the same, coming from Meg and her family, as I kind of just mentioned. I'm the controlling owner of the club and the governor, so I mean the buck stops here, good or bad or otherwise. So I'll continue to be the one primarily responsible, for running the team, with my partner Jeff Birding, who is more day to day. But we'll certainly be looking for all the help that I can get.
I think it's one of the things Carl and I have in common, which is we are both collaborative leaders, and I have sat on boards of directors before. I've had very influential boards of directors, and while there's not an official board here per se, I think Carl is looking for advice when he asks for it. But having been a CEO of my own organization, I also know who the owner, the controlling owner is. Just like when you sit on a board, you know who the CEO is. So listen, as Carl said, I think I have a deep and long-term background in technology, both business-to-business technology around networking and storage, and we actually had a huge division at Hewlett-Packard that did stadium IT. And then I also have a long background in consumer technology. And then with my most recent venture in content, not only at Quibi right now, but I also spent 4 years at the Walt Disney Company. So, and I think increasingly for these professional sports teams, content, the stories you tell about the players, about the team, about the fans, this is what people look for on social networking, and you have to build a narrative, and people need to feel like they know the players, they know the coaches, and I think that intimacy on social networking is really important. And then, as he said, we have a family business that does real estate development, so hopefully we can add a little bit benefit there. But I'm available when Carl asks, and we'll be super collaborative.
Okay, John?
Meg, you mentioned the dynamic growth that you have seen recently in Cincinnati, so that draws my interest about when you first came to P&G some 40 years ago. Over the arc of that 40 years, what you've seen happen in Cincinnati, and what do you think Cincinnati needs going forward?
Well, I'd say, particularly in the last decade, a little bit more than a decade, the trajectory of Cincinnati is significantly different. When I joined P&G literally 40 years ago, can you believe it's been 40 years? The downtown was sort of on a decline. Now the downtown business district seems to be vibrant with new buildings, new construction, new companies. Over the Rhine, which is very adjacent to the West End Stadium that Carl has undertaken, looks completely different than it did 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was a place that we were sort of told don't go because it's maybe not that safe. And today, it looks remarkable. I mean, the stores and the shops and the housing, it looks like a place that I think young people would very much like to live and be part of the social scene there. So that's how I think about it. Listen, when you ask what does Cincinnati need, it has anchor Fortune 500 companies, which every great city has to have, whether it's P&G or Cintas or American Financial. It has some great anchors. I would argue that almost every city now needs to think about how they're going to have a tech hub. And I know you have an incubator here. I know there's a brandery that is helpful. I think this is going to be important because every business is a technology business now. You think, okay, well, agriculture, that can't be a technology business. It is. If you've sat in one of these combine harvesters, it's literally like a network operations center. And do you know the biggest self-driving vehicles in the country are actually agricultural vehicles? Everyone talks about, Waymo and, all these others. It's actually agriculture. So I think the point I make is just every business is a technology business. And so I think these, cities need to make sure they're investing enough in entrepreneurs and people who are going to build technology companies in their midst.
Patrick?
Meg, you spoke about soccer growing in America, and where do you see kind of like the greatest room for improvement in the next 5-10 years or so, and what will Cincinnati's role in growing that brand be?
Well, I'll ask Carl to answer that question as well, because he's been involved longer than I have. But MLS has been in existence for 2 decades, right? These new sports to take hold take time. This is not, add water and a tree grows. This is a long-term investment, which I think the early MLS owners and MLS as an organization has fostered. And my sense is that soccer is about to hit what I would call the knee of the curve. A lot of businesses could have go along like this, and then they hit a knee of the curve. You can see the expansion teams that have been granted over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, we were just at the Board of Governors meeting, and there were 6, I think, new expansion teams. Clearly, this has become much more in the consciousness and the zeitgeist of people in the United States. And then the last thing I look at is where are the young children spending their time playing sports? And all you have to look at is this, basically 5 through 12-year-olds. It is a much bigger percentage of young people playing sports, and so when they grow up, that's the sport they want to buy, or they want to go be part of. But maybe you have a broader perspective than I do.
No, I think you covered a couple of the important things. The number of the expansion teams, when you take a look at what youth are playing. I think the investment by the MLS teams in the academies.
Yeah.
United States, there's no reason why the U.S. can't develop over time some of the top soccer players in the world. It's just the investments are fairly new in that. We, along with other clubs, have just started the academies, and you're not getting the Messis and those guys in a few years or whatever. I think that over time, you'll see. I think the MLS and U.S. have the potential to develop some pretty meaningful talent. And that's a very exciting, part of what we're doing. To think about FC Cincinnati 5 years from now, maybe, who knows, maybe, a quarter or a third of the team could be homegrown players or and that. So that's a very exciting development. I think the quality of the training facilities also, within MLS continues to improve to support not only attracting quality talent internationally, but also, again, kind of training, the youth up in youth academies. So I think it's a very exciting time, to be in the sport. I think also it's a sport from a spectator standpoint that fits the younger generations. It's kind of hard to, sit for 4 hours and sometimes watch, baseball and some of the other sports in that. So how fun is it, to know that the games are going to be done under 2 hours? You can go to dinner before, after, and I think it's a sport that fits the the younger generations right now. And I'm older, but I enjoy it too. So.
Laurel, and then after Laurel, we'll have time for 2 more questions.
Carl, do you see yourself being the controlling owner long term, or is there any chance that this could possibly be paving the way for maybe stepping back at some point? How do you see that playing out?
Well, my plans are to be the controlling owner, for, a long time. My family, we didn't make this investment in time and effort, and it's been a lot of time and effort, over the past 3 or 4 years. And, with the thought of selling a team, quickly or not being involved in the team. I have a lot of family members that enjoy soccer, and so I look at it. I'm sure as Meg does, as our family looked at it along with the Farmers and Josephs and our other partners as a long-term commitment and a long-term investment. We want to do something. We want to leave a unique legacy for our community in Cincinnati. To have launched the third, major league type of professional sports franchise and do it in the time period that we did was pretty incredible. For that, I think, the good Lord above. I truly believe that.
And we had no expectation of ever being a controlling owner. We knew we were acquiring a minority stake, and we knew that, and we're totally comfortable with it, which comes back to, life is too short to be in business with people that you don't like and respect.
Okay, Sherry?
So I just got finished reading your book, The Power of Many, and you talk in the book a lot about being a female trailblazer, and that's something that has just been part of who you are in every company. Do you see that as an important part of doing this now?
Listen, I think when I, went to undergraduate school, I was just the fourth class of women to go to an institution that had been all male for 250 years. When I went to Harvard Business School, I think just 20 or 30% of my class was women. So I've always been on the forefront, and particularly now, I think it's incumbent on us in these leadership positions to try to help and mentor young women. And whether it's young women athletes or young women business people or young women social entrepreneurs. So I'm spending incremental time over what I certainly did when I was in my 20s or 30s, trying to sort of be encouraging and being a mentor to young women. You probably know I'm the chairman of Teach for America nationwide, and that's another way that I try to promote science, technology, engineering, and math, particularly to young women.
We were just up at the MLS meeting in New York City, and I know Don Garber, is really excited about having Meg's, involvement and impact also for some of the same reasons, within MLS soccer. So,
Professional sports, the ownership teams are still largely all male. And there's a few women ownership groups in MLS, St. Louis, right?
St. Louis is the first all-female ownership team, and I think Dee Haslam,
In
there
Columbus.
is the governor of the Columbus Crew.
Yep. So
So-
there was a few women around the table.
Yes, that's right.
We'll do 3 more questions to wrap up with Steve, then John, and conclude here with Alex.
Thanks. Just a quick one. Bloomberg reported that your investment was $100 million and 20% of the company. So I don't know if you can confirm that, or can you guys say, are you, it sounds like you're probably the second largest owner at this point, and if you can tell me if that's right. And then along with that, Carl, are you guys looking for other investors still, or does this kind of wrap that up?
Well, we're about wrapped up, I think, but we're continuing to talk with a couple of additional, smaller investors in that, and we'll continue to do that. But yeah, I think the good news is with a very ambitious project that we're about over the finish line. So, and
I'm going to let the controlling owner speak to the financials.
it's not really our policy to talk about size of investment by investor and that, but I think the Whitman family's their investment and her role as alternate governor speaks to the size of her investment within the group.
Meg, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't ask you. I can't let you get out of here without getting your observations about whether there's any regret on your part about not being part of the 2020 presidential race, or are you planning a Bloomberg-like late entry?
No, I'm not planning a Bloomberg late entry to the race. Obviously, took my turn in politics. I was obviously a big supporter of Mitt Romney's, who was my first boss at Bain & Company, believe it or not, and then obviously worked very hard for John McCain. So I took my turn in politics and decided it was a better fit for me to be in business. So I will, obviously I stay active in understanding policy and what's going on, but you will not see me run again.
Our final question up front.
In regards to business operations, Meg, everyone is familiar with the growth that you led at eBay as far as the staff and annual revenue. Do you see similarities in the opportunity here at FC Cincinnati, and Carl, with the club's ambitions? Is it a priority to continue building out that part of the organization to be a top flight major league team?
Yeah, so what I really like about FC Cincinnati is it is an early stage startup. right? I mean, quite similar to, in fact, FC Cincinnati has more people today than eBay did when I joined. I joined with eBay where there were 30 employees, and today I think you have 90 employees in just the last 18 months. So it's
Yeah.
been pretty rapid growth. And so I love these early stage startups. There's so many things that are unknown, things that need to be figured out. Bringing together, the experiences of Carl and the farmers and others to figure out what the right decision is. Because there's a bit of a playbook. MLS has many other teams, but everything is unique. Like they say, all politics is local. All sports teams are local, and how one does the very best for Cincinnati, I think, is part of the fun of an early stage startup.
Yeah, I think as far as, building out, I think on the staff and the operations staff side, I think we're in good shape. I think we're, pretty well built out. When you're on the, on the pitch, when you're a new team, it really takes you a while to, get the right mix of players and, to be as competitive as you want to be. So I think we're still hard at work, looking at adding a few additional players that we think could make a difference, for next season.
The other thing I would say is I think the leadership team, I think Carl and I, for having done this for so long, we know that you are only as good as the people that work on the team. And I think you've done a remarkable job assembling an incredible team in the last 18 months.
Thanks.
I mean, from a cold start. And I know how hard that is to hire your first, 10 or 20 people. I think that group over there, you guys have done a really nice job, and you should really be pleased with the level of quality of the leadership team that you have.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, we'll just ask you both to stand up, step in front of the table. We'll do a quick photo op.